So with, of course, such a global market for talent that emerges from business schools, the needs in dynamic economies of Southeast Asia and Latin America, and the leadership qualities that go with it. McKinsey was one of the first to identify that pipeline of talent. For me, it was fascinating to learn about the partnership and the foundation of the Asia School of Business in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, established in collaboration with MIT Sloan. And I'm delighted to welcome to Centre Court Professor Charles Fine, who is both the founding president and dean of Asia School of Business. Charles, your colleague Sean often talks about a frontier mindset for the students that are attracted to such an exciting and wonderful program like ASB. Is it equally true that founding presidents and deans need that same frontier mindset?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be with you. So I do think we have a frontier mindset at ASB that there's actually a famous saying in business strategy. It comes from Michael Porter's work. And the saying is, when you're trying to find your position in industry in business, they say find a lonely place on the frontier. So what does that mean? So be on the frontier of knowledge and the frontier of practice, but you don't want to be where there are too many other competitors. So they say find a lonely place on the frontier. And so I would joke with my colleagues that that's what we've done with the Asia School of Business, that we're trying to take the frontier of knowledge, but bring it to a frontier environment that hasn't really had as much exposure to the education that we offer at top business schools. And there are actually many great business schools in Asia, but if you look at the rankings, the majority of them are not in Asia, whereas the majority of the people in the world are in Asia. And so there's a huge opportunity to bring frontier learning to a frontier market, if you will. And I think that's what ASB is trying to do.
Now, you yourself, of course, with the career at Sloan, you're globally acclaimed for work around manufacturing operations. You've consulted with global multinationals from VW to GE and Unilever. As you look at Southeast Asia and that sort of pipeline of talent and even perhaps an approach to leadership, how has that sort of influenced the school's philosophy on leadership and some of the practices that you're using to achieve that?
Yeah, so there are huge economic opportunities in Southeast Asia and in Asia more generally. So these emerging economies in Asia are viewed as a frontier market, if you will, from the big global multinationals that you mentioned. But business doesn't work exactly the same in Asia as it does in other parts of the world, and even in Southeast Asia. And so we want to help our students grow into leaders that can be effective in this environment, but also in a global context. So some of our students come from the West because they want to explore careers in Asia. Some of our students come from Asia because they want to have careers in Asia, but they want to have the benefit of a more Western education. And so, but they all want to grow themselves as leaders. And our curriculum actually is highly focused on leadership. So about 1/3 of our students' time over the course of their program is devoted to what we call the action learning projects. And these projects are where students are put in teams, usually of 4 people, and they're given projects that they do over the course of a semester where they actually live at the company. Pre-pandemic, they lived at the company. Now they live digitally at the company for about 4 weeks each semester. And so they're deeply immersed in a project with other students, and our students come from about 30 different countries. So typically, a student is in a team of 4 or 5 where no 2 people are from the same country, and they may be doing a project from in another country. So we have projects, action learning projects from all across Southeast Asia and beyond, so including Japan, Korea, China, as well as the Southeast Asian countries. So you get a very diverse group of people working on a project. And how do they learn leadership? In some sense, through action learning. That is, how do I learn to work together in a team? When do I lead? When do I follow? How do I interact with this company? How do we bring our ideas and lead in that context, when in the Asian culture, in some sense, younger people are expected to listen, not to talk so much. So, but how can I be a leader in that kind of environment, even if I'm a younger person? So they have to learn to be culturally sensitive and culturally appropriate, but still learn how to grow themselves into effective influencers. And it's learning by doing. I mean, they get theory in the classroom, but then we throw them into these projects, and they get to apply the ideas and refine their understanding of how can I grow as a leader.
The fact that there are 3 of those action-based months that are sequenced throughout the program, are you and your colleagues really able to sort of then witness between perhaps the first and the third this leadership journey that you've taken them on?
Yeah, so actually they do 4 projects over the course of their term, and you can see the difference in maturity. So the first semester, the projects are typically the dominant dynamic is fighting within the team. That is, these people come from very diverse backgrounds. They're all successful from where they come, and they think that the way that I learned to do it is the best way to do it. And you're put in a team of other people who think the way that they learned to do it is the best way to do it. And they find that very, very challenging. And they have to learn how to work together. And leadership is not just talking, but it's also listening. And so that's a growth opportunity. By the time of the last semester, we see a lot more harmony. We see they know how to work together, even though they're put in a different team. So they're working in a team with people that they may not have been in an action learning team before. And they're working at a company they may not have worked at before. Things go much more smoothly. They've learned how to collaborate, how to communicate within each other, how to organize themselves, and how to work with a client company to deliver value. So because we take them through 4 projects, we can see that growth, and it's quite exciting to watch and rewarding to see at the end how much they can do.
McKinsey, among others, has reflected on this war for talent and building a pipeline of internationally minded future leaders. The fact that whether digitally or more typically living at the companies, does that then translate in terms of recruiters at the end saying, we can really see the difference because they've been able to apply their learning?
Yeah, so I think our action learning curriculum has been very effective in helping our students get jobs. That no matter what experience they come in with, because they do 4 different projects over the course of the term, they have a lot more that they can talk about. They can speak to experience. They can speak to, not only have I learned in the classroom the state-of-the-art theories and the state-of-the-art tools, but I've learned in my projects how to apply those tools and help deliver business results. A lot of recruiters want to hear that, or at least that it's something that they're willing to listen to and buy into, that we teach our students how to be effective on the ground from day one. I think if you do an MBA that's solely in the classroom, and then the day you graduate, you walk into a company and you haven't walked into a new company in a new environment to use these MBA tools yet, there's a much steeper learning curve that our students have already gone through because of this. So that helps our students in the recruiting process.
We would always wish leadership to be responsible or leadership to be ethical. Are those something that you can instill? Again, is it sort of learning by doing?
Yeah, so that's a really important question. So in our mission statement, it says that ASB aspires to develop transformative and principled leaders. So principled is in our mission statement, and we use our mission statement sometimes as a club. That is, every time I speak to the students, I say, remember the mission statement, and it is kind of ingrained into them that that's our statement. But how do we make it real? How do we actualize it? So in these real life projects, ethical and moral dilemmas occur all the time. I mean, students see things going on in companies and say, "Whoa, is that ethical? Is that moral? How do I interpret that?" Students might be asked to do things that they might question, and students get exposed to different cultures. So if we have students from so many different countries and cultures, what's socially acceptable, even what's ethically acceptable, differs by culture.
Right.
And so they're forced to face, gee, you did it that way. We didn't think that was the right way to do it. And so these projects force them to think about and to talk about and to resolve, in some sense, how am I going to act in certain circumstances, and they get a lot of opportunity to be in different circumstances.
Right.
Now that doesn't mean that they come out as angels, or that anybody is ever going to be an angel, but the awareness of ethical issues is highlighted. It's central to these projects. The projects are not just about, how do we optimize this variable or that economics. They're holistic business challenges that happen in real organizations with real people, all of whom are imperfect, and they have to wrestle with that. Now we have an ethics course that's required of all the students, and again, the action learning helps them iterate between, well, we did some things in our projects, what does the class say about that, and then given what we learned in the class, go back into our projects, and then how do we apply what we learned in the class, or can we apply what we learned in the class in the project? So this iteration between theory and practice helps reinforce at least the awareness of the ethical issues, and pushes students to address what kind of a manager and what kind of a leader do I want to be.
Right. I think it's that combination of sort of the hard skills and soft skills. And remind me, because at ASB you talk about, is it smarts and sharps? Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So we use the term sharp skills to mean the analytical skills, the tools, the data analytics, statistics, optimization, system dynamics, modeling, the financial tools, etc. We use smart skills to mean organizational skills, how to work in teams, how to be a leader, how to be a follower, how to communicate well, how to act in various situations, how to hire someone, fire someone, assess people. So all those kinds of organizational skills we call the smart skills. So the smart, and we don't like the term soft and hard because they're pejorative in the wrong way. Smart skills says exactly what you want. You want to be smart in an organization, and sharp skills says exactly what you want. You want your analytics to be sharp. Right. So we like that vocabulary. We use it all the time, and the students like it too, and they adopt it.
And as you translate that to a global business landscape, and of course so many nationalities from different cultures in the classroom, are they then, wittingly or unwittingly sort of working on this language of leadership, and what then constitutes effective cross-cultural communication?
So when you say the language of leadership, I think my reaction is the language of leadership is action at least as much as words, right? So I mean, the famous saying, right? Do as I say, not as I do, right? And walk the talk, right? So leaders have much more impact by their followers seeing what they do as opposed to what they say. And obviously, if they don't do as they say, then they lose credibility very, very quickly, right? So it's more through your actions than your words, if you will. Obviously, the words should reinforce. You should state your principles, and then you should live your principles. And I think that's what we try to help the students think about, is that what are your principles? Can you articulate them? And can you live them? And again, we're not manufacturing angels. Nobody's perfect in this, and we all have our faults, and we all have our challenges of living the ideals that we aspire to. But we try to raise awareness, and we try to help students have the tools to live the life that they want to live as a leader in an organization and more generally in their lives.
Right. As you reflect on, your career and the classroom in Cambridge, Massachusetts at Sloan, the classroom in Kuala Lumpur with ASB, irrespective of where that takes place, do you think that there are 3 or 4 key leadership skills that students really need to be successful in business, and what would they be?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I do think so. So we have a long list of smart skills, if you will, which we can call the leadership skills, and near the top of the list, I would put humility.
Mm.
I think very few people want to follow someone who's arrogant.
Mm.
Now, it may be that arrogance has appeal to some people, but I think someone who is humble, who can show that they're capable, but that they're also humble, is to me a great attribute of leadership, and one that we try to emphasize to students. We tell students, if you go into your action learning project and you act arrogantly, like, oh, I'm from ASB or I'm affiliated with MIT, that's an extreme turnoff.
Mm.
So you have to be humble. Humility is critical. Second, we use a term called cognitive readiness. What's cognitive readiness? It's sort of ready for anything, right? That is adaptability, flexibility, but you're mentally ready. So think about how do you react to a pandemic? Do you panic, or are you cognitively ready for whatever might come your way?
Right.
So cognitive readiness is an ability to be prepared, to be able to react well, to think outside the box, to anticipate. I think that's critical to be a leader. A leader can't be someone who's frozen in a certain paradigm and a certain model. They have to be sort of cognitively ready for anything. And a third one that I would name is dependability. Can we depend on you as a leader? You're our leader. Can we depend on you? Can we trust you? Are you somebody who is going to follow his or her word? Are you someone who can be counted on to deliver what they promise to deliver, and to be consistent? So I think humility, cognitive readiness, and dependability, those are three really important leadership characteristics that we try to emphasize.
Right.
But we put it in our smart skills toolkit, if you will. But I think those are the three big ones.
And of course, the ASB experience doesn't stop with graduation. It will continue with them. And perhaps, have you witnessed with graduates from some of the earlier classes, even as they've faced the pandemic and perhaps having to lead digitally versus face to face, that they've been how they've then been able to apply that thinking in the subsequent stages of their career? I mean, you're leaving them with a wonderful toolbox for the years to come.
Yeah. So our students have done reasonably well in getting placed, including in digital firms. So Google or Facebook or Microsoft, companies like Amazon, we've had students go to all those companies and fit in digitally, if you will. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. This is slightly off your point, but maybe still interesting. When the pandemic first hit, and our students, like many students, complained, well, we're getting cheated out of our education. We're not getting exactly what we thought we were going to get. And one of the things I would say to them is, if you talk to the folks who graduated 2 years ago, who are now facing the pandemic, they might say, you didn't teach us how to deal with a pandemic. You didn't teach us how to live in a digital environment. You didn't prepare us for this. And I say to the current students, look, we are preparing you for today's world. We are teaching you how to live in a digital environment. So you're not getting exactly what we promised you, because the world has changed, but you're getting, we would argue, what you need to go forward. And so I think what we've done over the last year and a half during the pandemic is we've continued to do our action learning projects as scheduled, but a lot of them have been 100% digital. Mm. So the companies have been engaged digitally, the students have been engaged digitally, end to end the projects have been delivered digitally. The companies have been very happy. They say, gee, we're getting value out of this, and these projects are helping us to learn how to operate in a more digital world. And our students get the same thing. They're learning how to do projects end to end, soup to nuts, work with external clients in an all digital world. So I think the skills that they're getting do help in this being able to learn how to deploy yourself in this very digital environment.
You've identified some of the wonderful recruiters, that come to the school and recruit. perhaps when applying to ASB and when applying to business school, applicants might think about, well, I hope to get into this specific role or work, at this company, rather than the sort of the person and future leader that they want to develop into. What is your advice to that applicant as they sort of start this process of self-reflection and applying to school?
So I think it's very hard for someone who's maybe in their mid-20s to know what's going to make me happy when I'm in my mid-30s or something like that, right? And we all have ideas at every stage of our life what we want next in our lives, but we don't know those things perfectly. We don't know because we don't know what we don't know. If an MBA does a good job for a student, it opens doors and opens windows and opens views that the student has never seen before, maybe has never imagined before. And so you might think, I want a particular industry, I want a particular role, I want a particular job, I want a particular lifestyle when you start your MBA program. But by the time you finish, you may be a very, very different person. And one of our marketing lines early in our history was, "We will change you, and you will create change." And when you ask our graduates 2 years when they finish the program, have you been changed? Absolutely. I'm not the same person I was, and my aspirations are different, etc. So my advice to students is be open-minded to that. Be aware. I think it's great to know what you want or to think what you know what you want, but I think you also want to keep your mind open to what you might learn about what you might want that may be very, very different than what you imagine. Be open to the new vistas that are going to be presented to yourself, as opposed to saying, gee, I'm just focused on this. This is what I came for. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to get out of it. You miss out on some of the value of the education if you view it narrowly that way.
Right. It's been such an exciting adventure the first 6 years. What do the next 6 or 16 years look like for Asia School of Business?
Well, first of all, I hope they're pandemic free. This has not been fun, right? The pandemic. But I don't know if in your broadcast people will see the background of my
yes.
video, but behind me is our new building, which was just constructed as the pandemic started. So we haven't really gotten full use out of it. But ultimately, it will house over 1,000 students, 50 to 75 faculty, and a full suite of a broad range of business research centers, executive education, et cetera. So I think the next 6 years of ASB is a period of growth. That is, we have been constrained in our growth partly because we were in a temporary building. Now we're in a permanent building. And so I think we're going to be able to expand our student body, our faculty, and our reach. Our reach has actually been quite good. So we've had our action learning projects have covered over 250 companies across the world, mostly in Asia. And most of our action learning clients want more. We want another one. We get a very high repeat rate. So I think part of the next 6 years is more of the same. That is, we will grow the action learning component curriculum footprint. We'll grow the student body and the faculty. We'll be able to offer more electives, I think. But there'll be some things that are the same. We'll continue the relationship with MIT. We have a lot of MIT faculty who, prior to the pandemic, were flying in and teaching classes. I think that will resume. We'll also be able to bring our students to MIT every year. That will resume. And so we'll continue to try to build on the MIT capabilities, build our own capabilities, and try to influence Asia and the emerging economy by developing leaders who can have an impact.
Yeah, well, I think you've lived up to Michael Porter's statement about the frontier extremely well. Thank you, Charles, for taking the time to join us. We hope that a future Centre Court will actually be able to, you'll be in that wonderful building behind you, surrounded by those 1,000 students, but for your time and sharing perspectives on the leadership journey that your students can expect. It was a real pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you so much for the time. I enjoyed the conversation.